Shopify grows your business no matter how far or big you grow. Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. Whether you're selling your fans' next favorite shirt or an exclusive piece of podcast merch, Shopify helps you sell everywhere. Shopify powers 10% of all e-commerce in the U.S. Allbirds, Rothy's, Brooklinen, and millions of other entrepreneurs of every size across 175 countries. Plus, Shopify's award-winning help is there to support your success every step of the way. Because businesses that grow, grow with Shopify. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/income, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/income now to grow your business, no matter what stage you're in.
Let's face it, our culture values youth, beauty, and in the running world, speed. We train to get faster, stronger, and to cross that finish line just a little quicker than we did last time. Good news is if you picked up running as an adult, even at an age where you are technically past your biological physical prime, you can grow muscle and run faster with good training and nutrition. And you can keep on improving for years, possibly even decades. But if you've been running your whole life and were well trained at your physical peak, you will eventually slow down with age. We all will. Paces that once seemed easy for you will become harder and harder. Race finishing times will get slower and slower, and you will find that recovery from training and racing takes longer and longer. It's enough to depress even the most upbeat Masters runner into hanging up your running shoes and settling for life in a rocking chair. But my guest today is here to tell you there is another way. Welcome to The Planted Runner. I'm Coach Claire Bartholic, and my mission is to help you improve your running, your mindset, and your life with science-backed training and plant-based nutrition. In this episode, we're going to have a conversation about running and aging exceptionally well with Masters runner Cynthia Miller. You'll learn about how Cynthia started running in her first pair of waffle-soled Nikes, how her passion for running has only grown despite the normal effects of getting older, and how changing her perspective about what's truly important in life and in running helps bring her joy and meaning no matter what her race times are now. Cynthia shares moving and inspiring stories about how her running has evolved over the years and how it keeps her feeling young, even at almost 70 years old. If you plan to run as long as you possibly can, but are struggling with the downsides of getting older, this is one you don't want to miss. And you'll definitely want to check this one out on YouTube because you are not going to believe how youthful Cynthia looks. Before we get into this conversation, I wanted to let you know that I've been chosen as the official coach for the Oktoberfest Half Marathon, September 30th, 2023, here in beautiful Asheville, North Carolina. Come run along the French Broad River as the trees change color and enjoy a tasty craft brew after the race. I've created an exclusive 12-week half marathon training plan specifically for the Oktoberfest Half Marathon, which you can add to your cart with your registration. It has everything you need to run your best race, including mileage, strength training, and of course, my best mental strength lessons. They've also created a private Facebook group for the event where you can get support and join a community of runners ready to don their lederhosen this fall. This race is expected to sell out and training starts July 9th, so sign up today at oktoberfesthalfmarathon.com. That's Oktoberfest with a K, halfmarathon.com. And at the end of today's show, right after the Mental Strength Minute, I'll announce this month's winner of our Apple Podcast Review Contest. Anyone can win just by leaving a 5-star review of the show. I'll choose one random winner to win a free signed copy of my book every month this year. And now here's my conversation with Cynthia Miller. Welcome to the Planted Runner, Cynthia.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
I'm so happy to have you. This all started because I asked some of the athletes on the PR team if they would be willing to come on the show and talk about their experiences. I've had a lot of requests for quote unquote normal runners. And I have also had a lot of requests recently for masters runners, people over 40, 50, and 60. And you volunteered. So why did you want to share your story today, Cynthia?
Well, I was one of the people that suggested that we have some guests that could address, aging and running because that's where I am. Mm-hmm. And I thought it would be great for me to hear other people talk about aging and running. And so then you said, well, maybe I should interview you. And I thought, okay, well, I could do that because I do have some things that I would like to say to younger runners.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So, I've been running since I was about 25, and in 2 weeks I'll be 70. And so that's a long, and I've been running that whole time, just recreationally. I'm not a great runner. I'm, maybe I hit an age group once in a while, but, I was very dedicated to running. And it was definitely a lifestyle for me. But what I want to say is that younger runners need to be very patient with themselves and be happy where you are. Because you will get better, but it's not going to all happen in 1 year, or 2 years, or 3 years. It could take years for you to hit your peak, so to speak. And just enjoy the process, because the race is great, yes, but it's the training and the process that is the real joy.
Absolutely.
And in order for you to enjoy that and really appreciate what your body can do for you, you have to almost stop pining for the next PR, the next race, live in the moment and enjoy where you are. Because it does not last forever.
Yes. Such good advice for any age, definitely. And I hope people are watching this on YouTube, because no one is going to believe that you are almost 70. I mean, do you think running is what has kept you so young looking and young feeling? I've always maintained my weight. I've never, even times when I've been injured, I've always stayed active. I do take really good care of my skin, but that's really all. I mean, if you were to see me, in my running outfit and all, you can see the wrinkles in my legs and that sort of thing, But this is just, I don't feel 70. I really do feel closer to 50. Yeah. Well, you definitely barely even look 50. You look great.
Thank you.
I think I do need to do an episode on skincare for runners, because you clearly wear sunscreen, right? I'm sure you do. Yeah.
And what I wish, I tan very, very easily. And so it was always really cool. My legs and arms would be very, very tan. But now I wish I would have worn sunblock on the tops of my knees, because that's where, when you see older runners, you'll notice that the skin on their quads is just all wrinkly and crinkly, So I would recommend wearing sunblock there too.
Okay.
As well as, your face and arms and
Definitely, definitely. I'm a redhead, so I can't get away without sunscreen.
Yeah.
So thankfully, I mean, there's definitely years where, where I was a stupid teenager and didn't wear it, but
Yeah.
now I am so religious about sunscreen.
Yes.
So definitely want to get that message out there.
Yes. Well, I grew up on the Gulf Coast and in the Deep South, and we were at the beach every weekend. And I never burned. I just tanned. I could get really brown. Mm-hmm. And so that was a thing, when we were young.
Yeah.
But about the time I hit 30, I started seeing what sun damage did to women who were in their 40s and 50s. And I thought, no, I better back off and take care of myself.
Yeah, definitely. Well, let's go back to your early days of running. You've told me that you began running in one of the original Nike waffle shoes. Tell us about your early days.
Yes. Well, how I started running was that I had a neighbor. I lived in Mobile, Alabama, and I had a neighbor who had moved from Atlanta, and she knew Jeff Galloway and was very familiar with his store, Fidipides, and she wanted me to run a mile with her. And so I thought, well, that's weird. I mean, this was the Deep South. This was, before Title IX. I graduated in 71. Title IX happened in, I think, 72 or 3. Mm-hmm. Girls didn't run. And so I went out with her and we ran a mile. I mean, I had on my kids and I didn't have a watch. We'd look at the kitchen clock, when we left. And then if we thought about it, we'd look at it when we got back. But it was kind of invigorating and fun. And I felt like, it was really something novel. So with that, I ran with her a few times. And then we signed up for the first ever Mobile Azalea Trail Run, which has been going on for decades now. I'm sure they still have it. And it was a few hundred people. We did a 5K. And for that race, I got these Nike waffle trainers because they were, that's what you had to have in order to run,
Right.
I was doing fine in my kids, but the Nike waffle trainers, they were special and they were $32.
Yeah.
And I wore them for years. I'm sure I wore the heck out of them. And I wore them for years until I ran my first half marathon. And then I got a new pair of Nikes.
I bet you wish you kept them. I'm sure you didn't, right?
No, I didn't keep them because they were so worn out. And I thought, why am I going to keep these? It was not a big deal. They were just, but yeah.
Yeah, they're
so kind
fun.
They were very thin and flat. They were more like a racing flat nowadays. Mm-hmm. There was no cushion, they were just, little flat shoes.
Yeah. Well, shoes have definitely evolved a lot since then. I would like to know how your running has evolved from those early days through now.
Well, it's just what you could imagine. I started doing 5 miles and then I was able to do 10. And once I did 10, I did a half marathon. And that was in about 81, I think. I did my first half marathon in Sacramento and it was 2:10. I remember that. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was dreadfully slow because there were so many fast people in the field. Back then, only about 25% of the field were women. Mm. And, it was all fast men and, other guys that were trying to be fast. So, I was probably towards the back of the pack. But, now when I look back on it, I think a 2:10 half marathon, I would love to do that. That would be so awesome. But, I was only 30.
Right. Isn't it funny how your perspective changes, especially on things like times?
It does. And I just went from there, my first marathon was in San Francisco and I did that like 4.5 hours. And then I did Honolulu the next year in 4 something. And I was always really happy with about a 4-hour marathon. I never expected myself to do anything better than that because I'm not blessed with speed or the genetics that are going to make me a really great runner. You know, over the years, I found that I really loved trail running more than anything. And so where I lived, there's a huge network of trails. I lived in Fair Oaks and Folsom, California, and Folsom Lake has huge trails. Auburn is not very far away. That's been dubbed the endurance capital of the world because they have the Western States 100 there. And so I was very involved with, you know, I do aid stations there, and I was friends with a lot of the ultra runners at that time because Western States was such a big deal. I mean, now you have to go in a lottery to get in, but those trails are just there for everybody to use. And there were lots and lots of races around there that were close to home. And we would go out and we'd do 20-mile trail run just for fun.
Yeah. Did you ever do any of those big ultra races?
I never did a 100-miler. The one that I did, which really was a very emotional journey for me, was the Cool Canyon 50K. And that one came about because my very, very good friend, Barbara, that I ran the first Big Sur marathon with her. That was in, I don't know, 86 or something. And then we were running together a lot. We trained every Saturday on the hills. And she decided to do Cool Canyon. And a month after she did that race, she was killed by a mountain lion.
Oh, my God.
And it was very, very bizarre because nobody had been killed in California by a mountain lion for, 80, 100 years.
Wow.
So it shocked us all, and it was a horrible loss because she had a 5-year-old and an 8-year-old child. And so I decided that I would run Cool Canyon the next year in her memory. And her husband trained me, so we trained for 3 or 4 months on the trails. And it was glorious. I mean, it rained the whole time and it was muddy, but it was still glorious. And I ran that, and it was very cathartic and emotional for me to remember her, because she and I had always said when we were about 39 or 40, we said, we're going to be still running when we're 60. Because when we were 40, we thought 60 was really old.
Right.
And, but she never was, she was killed when she was about 40 years old.
Oh, how
and
horrible.
So I just have a really special place in my heart for that Cool Canyon run.
Of course.
They call it a different name now. It's called Way Too Cool. It's in a little town close to Auburn. The town is called Cool, and there's canyons, and there's hills, and there's Goat Hill and Ball Bearing Hill, and just a lot of wonderful trails. And I love that run.
Before I get back to the conversation, I want to talk about a massive problem that I see with runners everywhere, and especially plant-based runners. You know that I'm the first to tell you that you can absolutely get everything you need from a plant-based diet as an endurance runner. But most runners are struggling. With our busy lives and time-consuming training schedules, making sure that you get enough to fuel your training and making sure that it's actually optimal for your health and performance is a real challenge. So that's why I tell all my athletes to make nutrition simpler and get Neurify Plus by Previnex. In less than a minute, you can mix their superior quality protein shake up with just water in a shaker bottle, and it actually tastes delicious. That is not the case with other plant-based powders I've tried. You can enjoy Neurify right after a workout, knowing you are getting everything you need for muscle repair, with none of the junk that you're going to get in one of the lower quality powders. Another cool way to use it is to mix up a couple of scoops with water or warm plant-based milk right before bed. Studies have shown that taking 20 to 30 grams of protein right before bed is the optimal time for protein synthesis and muscle repair that we all need. Look, this is the only product that I'm working with, and that's for a very good reason. I believe in Previnex quality, their mission, and I use Neurify Plus myself. And I'm not the only one. Lindsay Hine of All Have Another, Jason Fitzgerald of Strength Running, Whitney Hines of the Mother Runners, Elite Athlete, Emily Infeld, and so many others in the running world are passionate about Previnex too. If you're ready to simplify your nutrition and optimize your fueling, you can try Neurify for 15% off the regular price with my code PR15. That's PR15 at Previnex.com.
There is no hood like parenthood. When you meet a fellow parent, you just kind of get each other on a whole nother level. Hi, I'm Kanika Chadda Gupta. I'm a former CNN journalist, mom of 3, including twins, and host of That's Total Mom Sense, the podcast. I interview changemakers on their life lessons, legacy, and superpower of intuition, aka their mom sense and dad sense. I've had some pretty amazing parents on my show.
Hey, what's up? I'm Kelly Rowland.
Hi, this is Chelsea Clinton. It's me, Bobby Brown. Can't wait to share my story.
Episodes release every Thursday. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. Join my tribe at thatstotalmomsense.com and follow me on Instagram at Kanika Chadda Gupta. I'm thrilled to be on this journey with you.
Sports stars. They're like superheroes.
But they're actually real.
Which is why we've made a podcast about them. You see,
they've all got a story.
But too many of these stories were cut short.
Kobe Bryant,
Payne Stewart,
Flojo,
Phil Hughes,
Justin Fashanu.
We're writing episodes about all of them.
And sadly, many more.
Death of a Sports Star, a new series from Crowd Network.
And now back to our conversation. Yeah, I bet. I know the area a little bit. When I was in my 20s, I was a raft guide on the American River. So, so I spent some time in Coloma and Auburn and all those places.
Yes.
So, but that was before I was a runner. That's when I was a partying 20-year-old, and drinking and smoking. And totally different lifestyle back then.
Yes, I know that area is fantastic for runners. It really is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. A lot of what I'm going to kind of shift gears a little bit to running and aging in general. What I have found is that a lot of people kind of say, oh, when I get old, I won't be able to do X. And they think that, normal aging, the things that we find, aching this and I can't get up and I'm going to sit on the porch. I think a lot of it is less about aging itself and more about lack of exercise and a poor diet. Like how would you kind of answer that or talk about that subject?
Well, I agree with that, but I think that the most important thing is, even if you don't have the most perfect diet, is that you have to keep moving. Mm-hmm. You have to, find a class, find Pilates, find yoga, do strength training. Mm-hmm. You have to be mobile. And that's what I've done. I mean, I'm still very flexible. I can do Pilates. I think that sometimes what happens around here I live in a retirement community, and it's a very active retirement community. But what happens is somebody will get an injury and they'll need a knee replacement or a shoulder replacement, and then they don't ever really come back from that. And so that's kind of a downhill slide then. So you really have to realize how important it is to just keep moving, walking, whatever it is,
Do you find that you don't relate to other people your age who aren't as active as you are?
No, not really, because there's other things in life besides running.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of other things to talk about. You know, we have our kids and our grandkids and our travel and this community that I live in, we've probably got about 70 clubs that are very active. And I belong to a quilting group, and I actually work in a quilt shop a couple days a week because I love fabric. So running is very personal just for me. I don't have to have somebody else to do it with. That's just it's just my habit, and it's what I've been doing for all my life. Yeah. So I can talk to other people about different things. You know, I don't talk to them about running because that's going to be so boring.
I know. Yeah.
So I don't, very few people know that I ran a half marathon this last weekend. They, you know, I didn't tell anybody. Why would they care?
Right.
But it's just for me.
Mm-hmm. And tell us how the race went.
The race was very hard. I think I would have, in retrospect, I would have taken more time off before the race because I wasn't recovered from the training, from the last 2 weeks of training. And so it felt like a marathon. But I got, you know, I finished it. And if it would have been 2 weeks later and I was 70, then I would have gotten first in that age group. So,
yeah.
But
time to sign up for another one, right?
I know, it is.
Yeah.
It is. But I think I need to focus a little bit more on 5K training at this point, because it was hard on my body. I'm still recovering.
Yeah.
I wish I didn't take so long to recover, but I do.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Is that the biggest thing you've noticed with your running, how it's changed, is the increase of recovery time?
Number one is the slowdown, and number two is the recovery.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because, I mean, the effort level is still the same. So when I ran the half marathon on Saturday, the effort level was marathon effort level.
Okay.
It was hard.
Yeah.
And, you know, my running a 13-minute mile at 70 feels exactly the same as trying to run an 8-minute mile, you know, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So the effort level is the same, but also the emotions, the feelings, the thoughts, and all around the run are the same as well. So you don't lose that. You still get the high. You still get the sense of accomplishment. You still get that clarity of thinking when you're on a long run. You know, a long run used to be 12, 16 miles. Now it's 5 or 6 miles. It just changes in terms of quantity and speed, but the effort and the rewards are still there.
Yeah, for sure.
I went to a party one time with some runners that I hadn't seen for a while, and this was probably 10 years ago, and many of them were not running anymore. And I said, why aren't you running? He said, it just got too hard. So, but you know, running's hard.
Right.
And it doesn't ever really get easy.
No.
So I just say, don't give up when it gets hard. Just keep going and, you know, maintain your effort level and still gain the rewards of it.
Yeah. I think a lot of people at any age, when they start noticing it gets harder, they start noticing their times slipping, they have a tough time psychologically because, you know, running is moving from point A to point B as fast as possible. That's what a lot of people consider is the point of running, just to get there and do it as fast as possible. And when you're doing a race, whether it's a 5K, a marathon, a mile, whatever it is, people compare themselves to who they used to be and they get hung up on that. What advice would you give people who are just starting to notice that they just can't quite do the same things they used to?
Well, I would say don't do what I did, which was get all sad and depressed about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think you really just have to face reality. I did have to face reality. It took me a few years to deal with it. But, every now and then I would still run a trail run with 300 people and I'd get first in my age group. So then that was a little boost.
Yeah.
Right? So, okay, I'm still here. I'm still doing it. And then, somebody would call my name for first place for 65-year-olds. And somebody in the back would go, no way. Well, thank you. That felt really good.
Yes.
So I think you just have to keep encouraging yourself that, okay, yes, you are going to get older. If you're lucky, you're going to live a long time.
Yes.
And you will get slower and slower. And it's okay because you're still moving. You're going to probably stay healthy. I mean, I do not have any health issues whatsoever. Even if you have an injury or you get sick and you miss your big race, there'll be another race.
Yeah.
There's always another race.
Yeah. And the good thing is what you mentioned before. The older you get, the more people that drop out and give up. And so you got a better chance. The field is much smaller, when you're in your 70s. You're going to crush it.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. I think there were 3 women 70 and over in that half marathon.
Yeah. It's so inspiring, to see people who are still just going for it. Mm-hmm. I would love to hear a little bit, rewind the clock a little bit. You have kids and, you have a life. How did running fit into your life? A lot of parents, moms especially, but dads too, they kind of have this push-pull with running. They feel that it's great for their health, but they're also they have that guilt, oh, I'm leaving the kids to go for a run and I feel selfish about it. Did you ever have those kinds of experiences?
Yeah, of course I did. It's a hard, it is a push-pull, but the people around me, my husband was very supportive, and everybody that knew me knew how important running was to me. And so I just made it work. Mm-hmm. Maybe grandma would come and take care of the kids for a Saturday morning, or my husband would stay home that morning and he would run later. Mm. We just made it work. And then all of our vacations were a race. We would go to destination races. And that was our vacation. And I don't know, it didn't really seem hard to me at the time because I was driven to run.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so some people would maybe say that was selfish, but it was what I needed. And I wanted to be the best person I could be for my family. And running was a part of that. And I also wanted to be a good example.
Exactly. Did your kids pick up running?
My daughter did. Now she's not running now. She's in the midst of having babies and raising little kids, but she'll run again.
Nice. Yeah. Do you find yourself setting new goals as a master's runner? Maybe it's a new goal every age group, or how do you make it fun? What are your goals as far as, or how is goal setting changed?
Well, it changed at different decades. So at 40, it was, okay, it's a new age group. Well, 40 was a really tough age group. Mm-hmm. Very tough. So I just did the best I could, and I picked races that I loved. I trained to train, not necessarily for a race. And then if a race came up, then I was ready.
Yeah.
But, I didn't have a coach. I just trained on my own. I had a lot of people who were ultra runners that were giving me advice, and the ultra runners are totally into LSD.
I was not expecting you to say that.
Long, slow distance.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Long,
I thought you were talking about the drug.
No. LSD is always long, slow distance. And so I did a lot of that.
Yeah.
I did a lot of that, especially on the trails, because, the trails are you walk the uphills and run the downhills. Well, I got to be a really good downhill runner. And the uphills, trained a cardio system. But I don't know. I always had a goal. I never had trouble having a goal. Like right now, I wanted to do that half marathon because I hadn't done one in 4 years. And so I picked one and I decided to do that. And then I was looking back at some of the races that I've done. There's one in Cool, California called the Dirty Secret 10 Miler. And I love that race. I've done it several times and I would like to go back and do that again, next year, maybe. New age group, and just revisit those trails, because I love them so much. I don't know, goal setting's never been hard, because I just pick something and then decide I'm going to do it.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. What advice would you give the earlier version of you, the 20-year-old, 25-year-old version of you, knowing what you know now?
Be patient, be more patient, appreciate what you can do. Appreciate what your body can do for you. Don't try to jump ahead years in time. And it's a process. It's a long, slow process to get really strong. And maybe, I was never super fast by any means, but I loved my running. And I think that is the most important thing, is that I loved the process, and I had really good friends, and we would go on the weekends and do trails, and we just had a great time. I just say enjoy the process.
Yeah,
appreciate where you are. There are no bad runs. Even if you have a bad run, there are no bad runs. It's, if you can run, you're blessed. Because many times you'll find that you might not be able to run. Maybe you're injured or you're sick and you've had a layoff and you have to come back. And coming back is a challenge after you've had a long layoff. But just love the process.
Yeah. So, what about, are there anybody that come up to you and just, can't believe that you've been running so long? Do they ask you if your knees hurt, or what kind of things do you hear from people?
Yeah. I get that. I get that. That's why a lot of the reason why I don't talk to non-runners about running very much, because they don't understand. I mean, I've never had any trouble with my knees. I have good knees. I had good hips up until a few years ago, and now they're kind of a problem. But, I just do all the rehab and do everything I'm supposed to do. I need to do more strength training. I really need to do more of that, because it is definitely harder to keep the muscle on after menopause.
Yeah, for sure.
And I do have a little bit of bone loss. So strength training is the answer.
Yep. I put it on your schedule every week.
I know. And that's what I wish I would have been able to do more of when I was, in my 30s and 40s, was more strength training. But I could still do it now. I just need to get into it a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you noticed you've had to change your diet at all, or how you fuel, or anything like that?
No, I've never had any problems with my stomach, like no GI problems. But, in the old days, we'd run a marathon and we'd drink Coke.
Right.
That's what we drank. I mean, my best marathon ever, I think I had a giant Dr. Pepper in the middle of it, and I felt fantastic.
Yeah. Well, maybe you should try that again.
Well, I did try that again. That's what I got through that marathon on was Dr. Pepper. But we didn't have gels. I mean, we didn't have real food or anything like that. I mean, we had Cliff Bars. That was one of the things that we used in my 30s, I think, 30s and 40s. But now there's so much more nutrition information, and you just follow the current wisdom and find out what works for you. I always have oatmeal before a big race, and it works for me. I think you find out what works for you. Try different things that people suggest and see how you do.
Yeah, exactly. I always say that I wish I could give people a perfect prescription. Eat this for breakfast, eat this at mile 2, eat this at mile 4 or whatever. But it's so, people are just so different. Like I have tried oatmeal. I cannot have oatmeal before a run. I don't know if it's the fiber, but it upsets my stomach.
It could
so,
be,
you know, who knows? So everybody is different. Some people can't handle bananas, you know, which are great for me. So yeah, trial and error for sure.
Yeah, I really got into, in later years, I got into the gels because I thought they really helped me a lot. Didn't have any stomach issues, and it gave me the energy. So yeah, I like gels. But yeah, it's just, you're an experiment of one, and so you've got to figure out what works for you.
So what are you going to do to keep running as long as possible until you're 95 or however long you live? I'm sure you're going to live a very long time. What are the things that you feel like you need to really focus on?
Well, I have a Pilates class that I go to 2 or 3 times a week, and I think it's been very, very helpful for me with my posture and correct biomechanics. And also yoga is great because of the stretching. I wish I loved strength training so much. I mean, I really want to love it. And if I get into it, maybe I will. But I think that's one of the most important things is the strength training and flexibility.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Pilates, if you do it, you know, kind of specifically to running, it really can help with your strength. I had a Pilates for runners instructor on the show, you know, a few months back. So that was a really eye-opening episode. I don't know if you caught that one.
I saw that.
Yeah. Yeah. So maybe you are, you know, I mean, for most people, they do need to do more than that to build strength, but it's certainly a great place to start and way better than nothing.
Well, yes. And it definitely does maintain the smaller muscles that are the balancing muscles, and that's important because you know, as I've gotten older, my balance has gotten off a little bit.
Yeah. Yes. That's something that actually people don't talk about enough, in my opinion, is balance for everybody, but balance for runners, because we're hopping from one foot to the other, especially on trails. So you need to have your balance. And it is one of the senses that tends to decline as we age.
It does.
Yeah.
It really does. We practice that in our Pilates class.
Good.
We do some balancing work, and that has helped me.
Yeah, great. Well, I think it's about time to kind of wrap it up, but I wanted to ask you, this is a question that I used to ask on the last show that I hosted all the time. I asked all my runners, and thinking about bringing this back. What is the greatest gift running has given you?
Mental health. 100%.
Well, I love it. Cynthia, thank you so much for being on the Planet Runner podcast today. I think your story is so inspiring, and I know so many runners are just going to listen to this and keep going a little longer.
I hope so, because I hope that it will help somebody to make it through that transition from, 40 to 50 to 60 a little easier, a little more peacefully.
Absolutely. All right. Take care, Cynthia.
Thank you.
And now it's time for the Mental Strength Minute. Fortify your mind in 60 seconds or less. Today's topic is look for what doesn't hurt. During a tough race or workout, you will eventually come to the point where it seems like everything hurts. Your knees, your calves, your quads, your lungs are all begging you to stop the madness and just quit. It can be tempting to just give in. So look for what doesn't hurt. Do your earlobes hurt? Does your pinky finger hurt? How about your eyebrows? Make a mental list of all the body parts that are doing great and are pain-free and focus in on those. This is an excellent distraction technique that flips the script in your head from the negative to the positive. Give thanks for your happy pinkies and earlobes and remind yourself the effort is worth it. Of course, when I say pain, I'm not talking about pain due to an injury. Running through injury pain is a surefire way to make things worse, so please be smart and take care of yourself when you're hurt. This month's winner of our Apple Podcast review contest is Real McCoy 2, who wrote, "Great information, 5 stars. These podcasts are very helpful. As a longtime runner, I am always interested in new information on training, recovery, and nutrition to improve my running. Can't wait until the next episode." Your mission is to email me at Claire@ThePlantedRunner with your U.S. mailing address, and your signed copy of my book, The Planted Runner, Running Your Best with Plant-Based Nutrition, will be on its way. If you'd like to win a copy, all you have to do is write a review on Apple Podcasts, and next month, the winner could be you. Thank you so much for listening to The Planted Runner or watching it on YouTube. Have a great run today.
Hear Her Sports is a podcast for everyone who loves stories by and about women striving to improve and make a difference in their lives. I am your host, Elizabeth Emery, a former professional cyclist. In every episode, I introduce a female athlete or woman in the business of sport through a thoughtful conversation about who they are and the terrific work they're doing. My guests and I explore the glorious and frustrating issues in sports, history, equity, training, nutrition, and so much more. Join us for inspiration, for community, and for love of being a strong, athletic woman.